Hey everyone, it's Wendy Hutchinson, and I wanted to get on and just do a video for my YouTube audience. I know I've been transferring a lot of Facebook Lives over here, but I just wanted to record something specifically for you, my subscribers. Thank you so much for being here. You know, we're in the middle of such a massive global shift, and I feel it's a shift in consciousness. And also, as a result of that shift that's taking place, we're going to be seeing a lot of transformation. And transformation is really starting with each one of us as it's happening on an individual level. And it comes with a lot of emotional feelings. So change never occurs typically in a seamless, blissful way. If it does for you, you're lucky. But for most of us, change comes from a lot of emotion being churned up. It's physical experiences that we are having. It's things we're exposed to in our external home environments, in our city environments, in the global environment. So change comes usually through a lot of emotional feelings. It can trigger fear. It can trigger shock. It can come with a lot of discomfort. And so I wanted to encourage you all to be mindful of that. And also, as we're going through these shifts and navigating these rough waters that we tend to be in right now, it's really important to ground yourself energetically. And what I mean by grounding yourself is being really present and centered and aligned energetically with yourself. And if you don't know how to do that, I'm going to give you a couple of tips on how to ground and really be present in your field of energy. Because when we're not grounded, everything that comes up for us emotionally really rocks us, because we don't have this real sound and centered place to manage all of the emotions, right? And so if we're not grounded, it can be very, very difficult to be responding to whatever's presenting to us in a very positive and healthy way. So the easiest thing for grounding really is to walk out your front door and put your feet in the grass. Or if you live near nature, get out in nature every day if you can. Whether that's just walking in a park, or taking your dog out, or taking the kids out, you know, to walk a nature trail, or be near a body of water. So that's really my first suggestion as far as grounding. Also, I know many of you have heard me talk about this, but it's really important to breathe, and breathe deeply. Because when you take a deep breath and you feel that expansion, and then you breathe, hold it for a second, and you breathe back out, you're giving yourself almost a physical reset. So breath is really important. When we're stressed, we hold our breath. So it's really important to breathe and be consciously breathing. Breathe deeply and connect with yourself when you're breathing, which means feel your body expanding and contracting with the breath. It's not just shallow breathing, right? You really want to be resonant and present with yourself when you're breathing. Another way to ground is really, I think, to be present to your feelings. Be present in the moment, which means you kind of separate from all the noise and you bring your awareness back to you in this now moment. Because in our day-to-day lives, we get very distracted with the needs of our children and our families and work and household things that need to be taken care of, and it's difficult to be very mindful and present to this now moment. So grounding, I would also suggest, comes with stillness and presence, because you have to actually be present in your life to ground into your energetic field. If you're out here, if your mind is crazy, it's going to be very difficult for you to be approaching life in a very centered and grounded way. And why is this important? This is important because we are in a very turbulent time. So if you're on a plane and there's a lot of turbulence, the captain's going to come on, he's going to say, put your seatbelts on. Everybody sit down and put your seatbelts on. And it's kind of like, let's just buckle in and hold on for the ride, because things are going to get really bumpy, right? And so we're kind of in that experience right now, but it's life. It's our real life right now. Things are bumpy, and we're going through a lot of uncertainty. Like, maybe you don't know what your job situation is going to look like. Maybe your financial situation is challenging. Maybe your family is challenging you big time because you have nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. So we are with our families 24/7, and man, is that eye-opening, right? If you're used to being able to take your kids to school for 6 hours, 8 hours, and then take them to after-school activities like travel sports or music lessons or whatever it is, now all of a sudden having to be really present with our kids like the old days. I mean, mine are grown, thankfully, but I can only imagine how emotional that can be. I mean, especially if you have more than one kid. If maybe you have 5 kids at home or 4 kids at home, those are a lot of moving parts to navigate. And then you throw in all the rest of it, right? All the other demands. This is a very, very challenging time for so many people. So I'm going to recommend that we ground ourselves daily and sometimes multiple times a day, whether that's just coming back to our center with breath, going into the yard, swimming, being in water is awesome if you live near the beach or you have a pool. You know, anytime you can connect to nature, it's really beautiful. And I also just do kind of a very, very simple exercise for myself. And I just envision me bringing my energy back in, you know, from out here, and just kind of visualizing my energy coming back down into the core of me, of my being, to my solar plexus, to my heart, and really just energetically centering myself and anchoring into my own energetic field. So I wanted to offer that to you because when we are grounded, especially if we're mindful of it, when we're going through this turbulence of emotion and experience, it kind of serves the same purpose as like when we're on that plane and we're rocking and rolling in some rough air currents. You're buckled in, you feel safer, and you feel more centered, right? That's what we want, because we're being triggered a lot, and many of us have not been given the tools around how to approach what's happening with us, how to respond in a healthy way. And really, it's not your fault. You just weren't taught what to do. So it's really, and don't go, yeah, it's my parents' fault. I mean, it wasn't their fault either, right? Because they learned all their coping skills or lack of coping skills from their parents. So you can see how there's a generational patterns in how we approach and deal with our lives. So I want to offer a couple of tools in terms of grounding as we go through this turbulent time. And I also want to present a different perspective around how we can respond to a lot of these troubling events that are rising to the surface. I live in Houston, Texas. I live one town over, not even 2 miles from the town where the gentleman who was recently murdered is from. And so there have been a lot of protests, and there's been a lot of emotion kind of pulsing and surging through the city. So as an energetic sensitive, it's very important for me to like protect myself energetically, my field, be grounded, be centered, and really decide, how am I going to really show up in the world right now? And how am I going to respond to a lot of the things that we're feeling and processing right now? And for me, it's been really, really important for me, first of all, to be centered every day and to be really clear about who I am. Because when I'm clear about who I am and what my values are and where my alignment is, it makes it easier for me to decide how I'm going to show up in the world every day and respond to different events occurring around me. So what happens when you become very, very in touch and in tune and alignment with yourself, you become like the eye of the storm. So there's a lot of chaos swirling around you. And this is a metaphor for so many different circumstances, right? It's a metaphor for me being very calm and present and observing what's happening, but not really allowing myself to be emotionally triggered and sucked in. That does not mean I don't care, because I very much do care about my fellow man. And I very much do care about humanity, or I wouldn't be doing the work that I do on a daily basis. But I need to be really clear about how I can most effectively show up for others and be that light and be an example, and just model maybe a different approach from hysteria and anger and outrage. Because I think all of the emotions on that spectrum have a place and they all serve a purpose, but I think we all get to choose what feels in alignment with ourselves. And also we get to decide how we want to affect change. So for some people that means rioting. And for some people that means a peaceful protest. For some people it means creating music and bringing a joy to the world through art and music and creativity and connectivity with our fellow man through art. There's so many different choices we can make, right? And then there's also some of us who are more of the observer. So what we're doing is we're anchoring light, we're holding space, and we are kind of the eye of the storm. We're the calm and energetically holding space for all the chaos that's going on around us. That doesn't diminish your role. If you're not feeling called to go and raise a fist and fight, that doesn't mean that you're not doing your part. So however you're feeling around the events that are happening in the world, whether they're natural disasters, whether they're, racial injustice events, whether they're related to health and wellness and this pandemic, and maybe you're losing people, or you're terrified because someone you love is experiencing this coronavirus. Whatever it is that's showing up for you, you get to choose how you're going to respond and really honor that truth, whatever that looks like for you. If you're a fighter, if you want to be on the front lines, get out there, do that. If you're if you're an observer, sit back and do that. Your time will come. to come in and nurture and love and support. If you feel compelled to write, do that. If you feel compelled to express your anger, do that. I mean, be whoever you need to be. But make sure that the choice you're making is really, truly aligned with your feelings. And you're not doing something because you feel you have to, or because you're being pressured into it, or you don't know what to do with your emotions, so you're just going to jump in randomly and, you know, shoot first and ask questions later. Let's really be mindful about how we're going to approach our response to life and this energetic turbulence and all of these events that are coming up that are rocking our world right now. And let's get really clear, you know, put your seatbelt on, sit down, breathe, anchor, get centered, and then really ask yourself how you feel about things and what would be your best way to contribute to society. Some people give money. You know, that's how they show up. They write a check to charity. Some people are on the front lines at soup kitchens. Some people are marching arm in arm. Some of us are holding space and emotionally supporting people around us. You know, we all have a role to play, so let's not diminish or judge the role of anyone around us, because people need to do what they feel called to do. So I'm asking also to remove the judgment, because we all get to show up how we feel is appropriate, right? And let's not only remove the judgment around others if they're not on your agenda, because no one is supposed to be on your agenda. You're on your agenda. That doesn't mean the entire world needs to align with you. I know that comes as a surprise to a lot of people who are used to manipulating and getting people to do what they want them to do. Everybody has an opportunity right now to show up to the best of their ability and in whatever way it looks and feels appropriate to them. So let's extend that grace and allow people to do that without judgment, without criticism. Let's allow everybody to have a voice. That's what equality looks like, and tolerance, and the things that are values, I think, for a lot of us out in the world, and the things that we would like to see more of in the world. We need to be the change. So we need to model what we want our society to look like, what we want our reality to look like, what we're creating to look like. We need to model that. We can't be, you know, fighting fire with fire and then advocating peace necessarily. That's just my thought. You know, that doesn't mean that needs to resonate with you. I'm just sharing my perspective. So anyway, I just wanted to really hop on, encourage you all to stay grounded. Know that these are turbulent times. Focus on yourself. Ground yourself, align with your truth, respond in a way that feels appropriate for you, and lose the judgment. Let's just, for me, I'm just stepping back and I'm going to see how this all shakes out. It's the approach that I take a lot of the time, and it saves me a lot of emotional angst to not have to be in it. Unless I feel I can affect change, you know, I'm going to step back and be more of an observer, and then I come in later and do what I can to pick up the pieces. You know, we all have a different role to play here, right? So anyway, this was just a quick conversation. I want to thank you all for tuning in. I want to thank you for being you. I want to thank you all for showing up for yourselves in this really difficult time. If you're not showing up for yourselves, guys, get on your own team now. Now is the time for you to shut out all the noise and come in and figure out who you are, and why you're here. And that's so important. Why? Because we need you. The world needs you. The world needs you being authentically you and showing up in the way that you feel called to in the world as a person. We don't need you to fit in a box. We don't need you to be a version of you that someone else is pressuring you to be. Now more than ever, the world needs you in your beautiful individual essence and purity and light. So please take some time, and if you can, shut out the noise and really come into alignment with who you are and find your truth and find your way, because we need you right now. All right. So I hope you all have a beautiful day. I will talk to y'all soon. And thank you again for watching my little videos. I really appreciate it. Have a great one. Bye.